before you had breakfast and before you came here today, everybody's still dealing with something that's stressful. And if I don't teach you how to block those thoughts during your time where you want to shut off the fight or flight response, you're not going to fully get there, and you're not going to get the full benefit of what I'm teaching you.
Welcome to the Restore Go podcast, where we discover ways to restore our relationship with God and others. Now, here are your co-hosts, biblical therapist Pete Thompson and biblical coach Lynn Thompson. Together, let's learn how to restore go.
Thank you, Lynn, for that wonderful introduction. I'm really excited to share some ideas today. But before we start, I want to pray for the food that we've already enjoyed, that I've already tried out, so I know it was good, and just we want to give credit to God. Thank you, Jesus, that you made this opportunity happen, that you worked all these details together, and during this session, use this time to give us your wisdom, insight, to make the complex things simple so that everybody can walk away with an idea of how they can improve their lives and the stress levels. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
So today we're going to talk about how to better deal with stress and anxiety. And so every human body has three systems that regulate keeping us at homeostasis, which is perfect body balance. The sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, and the enteric nervous system. They all operate under the autonomic nervous system. So the word autonomic is a real clue. And so these three systems form a complex of network of nerves that regulate all involuntary physical processes necessary for survival. They operate without conscious effort: blood pressure, heart rate, digestion. Those things operate those. And so today I'm going to focus on two systems, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. But before I get into that, I want to share a story. So I grew up in California, and so over a 40-year period, I knew all the trout lakes that you could go fish at. I had them all mapped out. I knew what was in them. I knew all the fishing holes. And I'll answer that question, how I knew them so intently, maybe in the question and answers. I was on my way to one of the lakes that was about 9,000 to 10,000 feet, and I was driving in my little RAV4 up a Jeep trail, and I'm just driving, taking in the beauty of the scenery and everything. And then all of a sudden I saw this bear cub sitting on a log, just sunning himself. And I'm still driving up the trail, and I'm like, where's the mama? It's like, and I'm going, don't stop, don't take a picture, just keep going. So I kept going, and I went up and I had a great day of fishing. I caught like 10 brook trout, and those trout tasted really good. But then when I got home, I started thinking about that bear cub, and it's like, well, that wasn't really far from where I finally ended up fishing that day. So what I want to talk about is the implications of what could have happened. Getting to my spot at 7 a.m, getting my pole in the water, getting my first fish 10 minutes, getting my second fish 15 minutes later, and getting my third fish 35 minutes later. So by that time, I would be really hungry. And even though I love fishing, the need to eat the fish outweighs the need to catch more fish. And so imagine yourself cooking the fish on the fire. You've seasoned it nicely. It smells really good. And then just as I'm about ready to flip the fish onto my paper plate, I hear this really loud noise. And I see a bear on his hind legs with his nose up in the air, inviting himself for my breakfast. And obviously he would have a different opinion about that being his fish in his lake. And so as a result, I would have to think really quickly and come up with a plan. And so what I would have done is I would have grabbed that frying pan with all the strength I had with the fish in it and just throw that frying pan as far as I could in the direction of the bear. And then with the other 2 fish that are sitting in the lake on a stringer, pick those up and throw those in the direction of the bear, with the purpose of the bear being distracted by the smell of my fish and the other 2 fish, giving me time to get away from the scene safely. Get my poles back in the truck, get my little camp stove back in the truck, all those things so that I could get out of there safely. So then I would drive up the road 100 yards, leave the truck engine running, and scan to see, is the bear coming my way, and finding out that the bear is still really enjoying the breakfast that I left for him. And so that is a perfect example of how the fight or flight response works. And the fight or flight is part of the sympathetic nervous system. And it's a key thing. It's there for when we're in danger. That's the whole point that God created that for us. The other system, the parasympathetic system, that is the other system that helps regulate our body. And the parasympathetic system is the rest and recharge system. So ever since that morning, driving up to that fishing area, I was in the parasympathetic system where I'm enjoying the beauty, the scenery, the smells of everything, and just enjoying catching the fish. And so the parasympathetic system shut off the minute I heard the sound of the bear, and the sympathetic system went on, which is the fight or flight response. So today, I'm going to teach you the positive aspects of the fight or flight stress response system. I'm going to teach you the negative aspects of the fight or flight stress response system, and I'm going to show you tools that will help you overcome the negative aspects of the fight or flight system. So obviously the bear story, but there's a couple other stories that the fight or flight system is designed for. A car stalling on the railroad tracks. Now, doesn't mean a train is coming right away, but the idea that your car is there and you can't get it to move, the focus is get everybody out of the car and as far away from the car as needed for safety, get things out of the car that you need. And then when you're a safe distance away, the plan is to call 911 to get the police involved and maybe stop the train, but just to keep people safe. Another situation for the fight or flight response is you're at a public event and all of a sudden you hear gunshots go off. Now that system is designed so that you can get the needed resources and energy you have to either hide in place or get you and your loved ones out of the area. Another situation for fight or flight response is you're confronted with an aggressive criminal, not knowing what that criminal wants. Do you need to fight that criminal to protect your wife and kids, or can you get your wife and kids out of there? But that system is designed to keep you alive. That's the whole point of the fight or flight response, or the sympathetic nervous system, which other people call it. But the big problem is the body doesn't know the difference between a life-threatening, stressful situation and just a really stressful situation. And so examples of stressful situations, and I'm just going to cover a couple, but there's so many more that all of you have stressful situations that you regularly deal with. A talk with your boss he's talking with you about you're not making your sales quota for the month and the ramifications of not making your quota. A financial hardship that all of a sudden befalls you. A hailstorm comes through Texas, drops golf ball size hail, and drops that down on your house, destroying your roof, your windows, and any vehicle that you have parked in the driveway. Very stressful. Not life-threatening, hopefully. That friendly letter that you get from the IRS that says, hey, we want to audit the last 7 years of your tax returns because we're seeing irregularities in what you've done over the last couple years. And so we just want to help you. A difficult conversation with your spouse. And so those are inherently stressful because there's ramifications of all of these stressful things. That's why it's turning on the fight or flight response. And one of my favorite ones, it's dealing with the unknown. And so a lot of people struggle with the unknown. Say your boss comes into town and they say, hey, I'm coming into town next Friday and I want you to clear the day for me. Also, that Friday is the last day of the month. And so, which adds more implications. And so as a result, now you're like, am I going to be let go? What is he? And you ask him, what is this about? And he's like, no, I'm just clear the schedule for me. And so that's very stressful. And so when you have in the past situations where those type of things haven't turned out good, creates even more stress about this situation. And this situation might be fine, but it could be bad. And so that you're turning on the fight or flight response. So as a result, the fight or flight response was only designed for it to happen 3 or 4 times a week. And so when you look at how it's going on now, how often you're turning it on because of all these other stressful events, you might be turning it on 10 or 12 times a week. And so that's a problem because the fight or flight response is so effective in doing what it needs to do to help give you a chance for survival. It does that because it's taking resources from other parts of your body and using those resources so that if you have to run from a bear or you have to fight in a dangerous situation, you have an even chance of doing so. There's a lot of research, a lot of studies been done on the fight or flight stress response system. And so the National Institutes of Health and the Mayo Clinic have done a lot of stuff for the last 50 years. So I'm going to share some of their results. They say when the sympathetic nervous system triggers the fight or flight response, your body undergoes a process called shunting. It actively diverts energy, oxygen, blood flow away from non-essential systems going for survival functions and directs them straight to your heart, lungs, and skeletal muscles. So there's 6 systems in your body that go on shutdown or slow down as a result of when you're stressed, turning on the fight or flight system. I'm going to discuss 5 of them. I'm going to go real briefly on the digestive system because everybody just ate something and I don't want implications of that. So in another setting, I might give you more detail. But so when we eat food, some people really focus on the value of the food, the nutrients in the food, because our body needs that to digest and get the minerals and nutrients out of the food. But the digestive system will go on hold because it doesn't matter if you're digesting something if you're running from a bear. It matters that you get away from the bear. And so there's certain chemicals that are released when you're digesting food, stomach acid, enzymes, certain things that normally happen in digesting food that go on hold when you're in a dangerous situation. The reproductive system is the second system. So in that, there's 2 things that happen. There's hormone suppression. So the brain suppresses the release of reproductive hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. The second area where the reproductive system is hampered is tissue deactivation. So the blood flow is restricted from reproductive organs, temporarily halting functions related to fertility, ovulation, and arousal. So if you're a young family and you want to have kids and both spouses have really stressful jobs, that's going to be a problem. It's a big problem. And even if you're to Lynn and my age, and we just like dogs now and not interested in having more kids, but even that is impacted in a negative way. So I'll just let you read between the lines on that because this is a Christian conference. The third system is the immune system. And so what happens to the immune system is high releases of cortisol, which dampen immune responses. It suppresses the immune responses. And so it dampens systemic inflammation. I don't know what systemic inflammation is, but I know that high levels of cortisol are really bad for us, and it's the weight you put on that's really hard to get rid of. The second area in the immune system is that cell production slows. So the creation and the mobilization of white blood cells is put on hold.
Hey friends, let's be honest. It can be difficult, if not impossible, to find a Christian therapist that's true to your values. Pete Thompson knows that. As a licensed therapist, he is committed to providing godly counsel, introducing helpful tools battling everyday problems like anxiety, addictions, as well as marriage and parenting challenges. Give Pete a call to set up your next confidential appointment online or in the office. Visit petethompson.org. Again, that's petethompson.org.
So white blood cells are one of the key defenses to fighting off infectious diseases and dealing with the C word, cancer, because all of us have some cancer cells in our body, and our white blood cells are the ones that are eating those things up. And so if we're turning off our immune system because we're stressed, now it's not doing what God designed it to do. Another system is the urinary system, and that is where the kidneys filter the blood. They're always filtering the blood to take the toxins out of the blood to send it out of your system ultimately. And so when the fight or flight response is on, your kidneys aren't filtering as much, and so you're having more toxins stay in your body longer. And that can't be, I'm not a doctor, but that can't be a good thing. And finally, the last system that I want to talk about, it's the cellular growth system. Cellular maintenance stops. Long-term cellular repair stops. Tissue regeneration and bone growth processes are completely stopped. And so being in that fight or flight response, your body is not getting new bone, material. And so our bones over time become more fragile and brittle because we have less density to our bones, all because the stress response system. So it's really critical of looking at these different aspects and how it affects our body. And so as we look at this, the most dangerous thing that we face in life is how we're handling stress, because it affects 6 areas of our body that aren't working as they were designed to work. I remember a couple years ago, it was in the news, Jerry Jones had a lot of work done on his face and, rationalized it that, he's a businessman, but the stress probably that he was under and dealing with of owning the Cowboys, it's probably not an easy job. And so whether you like him or not, that's got to be a difficult job, even though he looks like he's having fun. And so, but I'm hoping everybody is at the place right now where they realize the fight or flight response does some really good things, keeps us alive, but left unchecked, it causes a lot of problems for us. And it really, I saw this book just for the title, Buy Back Your Time. And so the tool that I'm going to teach you next isn't from this book, but I love that title so much because what I'm going to teach you is going to buy back more time, because the stress response system, if we leave it on too much, it's going to age us prematurely. And we're all looking how we can have more time to do the important things that God has called us to do in this life. And we're prematurely aging ourselves if we're not turning off the fight or flight response. So how we breathe affects how our body responds. And so if you can remember in the past when you were in a really stressful situation or actually a life-threatening situation, if you noticed your breathing was very shallow and rapid, and that is the process of turning on the fight or flight response. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to teach you a tool of how to breathe differently so that as you do it the right way, you will be able to turn off the fight or flight response when you're in a stressful situation. Now, if you're in a life and death situation, I don't want you turning off anything. I want you running away from the bear. So what I want you to do now is I'm going to teach you how to breathe, and I want you to do it for 5 minutes because I want you to feel the effect of what it's doing for you. So what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in very slowly through your nose, and then you're going to exhale very slowly out your mouth, very slowly and quietly, kind of like this. So I want you to keep doing it, and I'm going to tell you what it's going to do for you. So 2 things are going to happen simultaneously as you're doing the breathing. It's going to slow your heart rate, and it's going to lower your blood pressure. 2 things that are really good. Now, if you have a medical problem of low blood pressure, this you might want to sit out. But if you don't have that problem, this will be very healthy for you. And so you're doing both of those things, and in about 2 minutes from now, you're all going to start yawning. And that tells me that you're breathing the right way because your body is getting in a relaxed state that's very important for your health. And so as you're doing the yawning, it's telling that your body is okay, that everything is okay. You're turning off the fight or flight response. And so as a result, you're feeling a little bit more relaxed, but we have one more problem that we have to consider. Before you had breakfast and before you came here today, everybody's still dealing with something that's stressful. And if I don't teach you how to block those thoughts during your time where you want to shut off the fight or flight response, you're not going to fully get there, and you're not going to get the full benefit of what I'm teaching you. So as a biblical therapist, the first 3 things that I'm going to go to is think about the prayers God has answered in my life or in my family's life, and dwell and be thankful for those things and dwell in the joy of that. The second thing is I'm going to look at miracles that God has done in my family, in my friend's family, in people that I know, and be thankful for that. And finally, the last one, remembering God's protection. God protects us so many ways that we don't even remember. But most of the ones I can remember have been in my car, and in the 46 years of driving that I've been in a handful of things where easily my life could have ended. They were that bad, potentially, of accidents. And because of God's protection, I wasn't in the accident. In that, driving over railroad tracks and your car going into a skid because you hit a puddle and spinning as you're watching the other cars go past you, and you're spinning, following them as they're going past you was an absolute miracle. And so thinking about those miracles and God's protection, what it does is it's able to metaphorically put a helmet on your head and block out the stressful thoughts in the 5 minutes that you're doing the breathing. And it does great things. Longer term effect, the more you practice this tool, is you're going to see stress differently. And that's the important thing. That's the recovery of having a tool that you can use to calm yourself down and not turn on fight or flight response as much. And that's a very powerful thing, because you're going to, as you remember all these 3 things and you're dwelling on those situations that previously would have worn you out or stressed you out, now you're like, well, God took care of me here. He protected me here. He answered prayers over here. Maybe I don't need to worry as much. Maybe I can give this thing to God and let Him help me, or let other people be in my life help me. I don't have to automatically panic. And that is where the value is, because if you're not turning it on, you're living in the parasympathetic mode more, and your body is recharging all of these 6 systems that would be shutting down if fight or flight response was turned on. And so I've taught this activity for about 16 years, and there's there's always a couple people that struggle with the implementation of it. And so a therapeutic session with me 1 or 2 times just to help you find those good stories, those good experiences, so then you're able to use this tool and be blessed by this tool, it would be very useful. Now, for people that don't have a tradition of faith, I have another true story. And this one's a little more, it's a little more humorous. So when I worked at my medical offices starting 16 years ago, I counseled the clients there that saw doctors at that office and helped them. And I also, my secondary role was kind of help the staff, because not everything that happens at a medical office is good. It can be very difficult on the staff. And so being there for the staff members and understanding the role that God gave me to be there for them was very important. And I took that role seriously. And so every day I would come in with a nice story, an encouraging story, a funny story that would make everybody laugh and just kind of lighten the mood at the 3 offices I worked with. And I worked with about 50 different people, anywhere from doctors to RNs to assistants to other staff there. And so it was always a very valuable thing for them, and they appreciated the input I was giving. But there was 2 ladies there that no matter what I said, it was always negative. I shared something positive, they turned it into a negative. And for 5 months, I'm just kind of dealing with this. And so finally I said, Pete, I go, you know what? I'm probably not going to be able to help everybody, but at least I'm helping the other 48. And I just kind of resigned myself that, I can't fix everybody. And so shortly after that, I came in one day and everybody was excited. Everybody was laughing. They were happy and joyful. Everybody was making jokes in between seeing the patients. And even the 2 ladies that I affectionately called doom and gloom, because I couldn't impact them. They were laughing. They were smiling. They had a great time. And I'm thinking, I was about to call in and say, I think it's happening. I was going to call her and say, the invasion of the body snatchers is here. And if I come home and I ask, hey, let's go clothes shopping and go to a ballet or something like that, they've got me too. And so before I did that, I went and I talked to one of the ladies. What is up? Everybody is so excited and happy here today. What is going on? And they said, oh, Pete, the California lottery as of 8 o'clock this morning was worth $580 million. And so between all 3 clinics, there's about 15 of us that decided to go in and put $2 in. And so if you want to put $2 in, you will get an equal share of the other 15 people. And we figure that's about $30 million after taxes. And so all day they were talking about the vacations they would go on and all these things and say they weren't showing up at work the next day and all kinds of just great stuff that you could do with intergenerational wealth like that. And I'm not a fan of the lottery, but I didn't want to be a mood killer at that, because I realized what a relief thinking about that was doing. And so as we look at life and we look at places we've been, vacations we've been on, things we've been able to do, and really remember those experiences and really enjoy those experiences again, even if it's 20 years since we went there. As you do that during the breathing, you will be fully able to turn off the sympathetic nervous system and turn on the parasympathetic nervous system. And so that's how we buy time back, because as we do that, we are extending our life and we're adding joy and we're adding peace, and we're not getting so caught up in the moment about the stressful. We're like, okay, God, I'm uncomfortable about this, but I've seen you've done so many things in my life in the past that I'm able to hang on and wait for you to do something now. And so if there's questions that are more personal questions, I would love to have an appointment with any of you to, kind of answer questions or utilize this tool better so that you can get the relief and so that you can start having more peace and enjoying your life. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for coming, enjoying the treats, and giving me a chance to be a blessing to you guys. And so I thank you for this.
Thank you for listening to the Restore Go podcast. Now, Restore Go is produced by Pete Thompson Christian Counseling. Pete is a licensed therapist who offers affordable family and individual counseling in North Texas and online throughout the United States. Pete provides counseling from a biblical perspective. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and visit us at PeteThompson.org.